Alumni. No cap. Thank you for being here. I did want to make one announcement. James Poissant, David James Poissant has 2 books out there. It will be available for signing. So yeah, go buy a book and hang out. Make sure you get C credit. We're going to have students introduce everyone. So first up, I would like to invite Chloe Spector to come up here. Yes.
Hello, I wasn't expecting to have to go first. I'll be introducing Charis Morgan. She is an MFA candidate at the University of Alabama and an assistant poetry editor for the Black Warrior Review. She studied creative writing and economics here at Berry College. She considers Rome, Georgia to be her hometown, so she's from around here, which is so fun. Her poetry appears or is forthcoming in the Florida Review, Green, the Cincinnati Review micro-series, Phi Kappa Phi Forum, and elsewhere. Please welcome Charis Morgan.
Thank you. Nobody hear me? Is it like higher?
Yep.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Alright. I'm gonna set a timer so that way I don't go too long. But yeah, no, I'm so excited to be here. In my imaginations, I'm always like, oh, I'll come back and I'm like super famous and have a book published and it's like won awards, and that hasn't happened yet. But maybe one day, maybe like sometime in the future. So yeah, I'm gonna read some collection of poems today that I've written about the past year and a half in grad school. They're all kind of centered around this idea of transition, moving from one place to another, one time to another, thinking about the old places and memories that haunt us, and this tension with the desire for a new life that we can create for ourselves, and maybe it's a bit softer and kinder than we came from. So appropriately, we're going to start with a haunted house poem, so if you enjoy. It's called Departing. At the end of 40 years of chatter and clutter, the house is nearly empty. Its face will fall last like the final page of a book. The pipes leak hours by the minute, and the back door opens onto an unlit highway. The pine beams vault over red clay. The walls thicken, closing over doorways. Both the bare steps and children's thumpings are absent. The house would have folded sooner, but its clocks lost their hands. The house squats on Spring Hill's bald head, its face bricked up, and 6 eyes rolled inward. Bedrooms hinge into a broom closet. The house refuses to call itself haunted or cursed. It covers a crypt, holding the dead who pretend otherwise. None of the rooms know their places or names. Like a child, the house has wet itself under the floorboards. Its eyes have filmed over, and red ladies tear from invisible cracks. The house hollows itself, losing flesh and memories. Unframed doors moan. Its dead are expelled, one by one. Okay, sorry, that was a party. Next, so this next poem is looking at a past memory. It moves briefly into the present, it goes back to the past again. And it's also kind of looking at think about the joys and trepidation of new love. This one's called Pillagers. It's kind of set in the backyard of the haunted house. Pillagers. The possum perches in the apple tree, past the moon's rising. 3 dogs circle, their barks harsh, sun ripples in the stillness. Pest control recommends treating every possum as if it is female, as if it is carrying young. She hisses with 100 needle teeth. From the porch, I watch the standoff in the 2-tree orchard. The The old dog plants himself 3 paces back, wagging his stubbed tail. His jaws have crushed bones and turtle shells. Suburban, wild, and wary, the possum resigns itself to an uncertain safety and a crooked limbs. Chilled in oversized cotton short and shirt, I admire her versatility. Show teeth, play dead, call up a tree for plunder, from perpetuity, rights of survival. How long will she crouch in the tree, risking her spine over a few sour apples? I envy the audacity of thieves and their willingness to risk body and future to gain, in some eyes, for realities. I sit in a theater with a man I love after months more apart than together. How much will we risk over each other after stealing pieces we don't intend to return? I would not be afraid if I had not watched him peel away so much of me. I cannot recall how she descended, whether she pocketed the apples or not. The old dog would have liked to snap her neck, like the one before, when she must have broke for the fence. The possum remembers her night of pillaging, far better than me, returning to sleep in the loft alone. Thanks. Yeah, so this is gonna finish out this little trilogy set in the backyard. This one, so the speaker of this poem is actually the apples themselves in the backyard. And I did this as an attempt to offer a bit of comfort to that younger self that I can't reach in the present anymore. It's called the Unripe Apples. We are unbearable. In May, trees shake their branches and refuse to pick us up again. No mother will ever pluck us with a gentle turn of her wrist. The red clay of the scalped hilltop has hemmed in the tree roots. With a dozen eyes, the house wince, waiting. We fear desiccation, hordes of ants, and decay, but the possum collects us all in one night, green and small as tangerines. We hardly mind how the forest sweeps us from the orchard, how when the possum sleeps, it is neither dead nor alive. Here is our choice to become other, fractional, and granular. We enter through the mouth and stay. Our cells are broken down and rejoined into teeth and feathers, sinew and skin, movement to forage. We perch and scurry and watch that little girl who severed the grasshopper's head while she waited for a ripening, now twirl into a hill of fire ants. They swarm up her leg. We wish to kiss the swelling hives she doesn't see, to carry her wrapped in leather. Yeah, so this one is a little bit longer. It's looking outward and more about learning what we can from new places and new experiences. This one came from a trip I took with my sister to Louisiana. This is through Baton Rouge and New Orleans. The oldest living cathedral in America still swallows waves of congregants for Mass, still releases them out of the corners of its mall. Partly unsurprised priests do not prevent the tourists slipping in with the backwash, knowing the cathedral requires rest each Sunday afternoon, satiated like a man napping after dinner. Freshly empty, there's little to block the cathedral's many faces, and ceiling frescoes and stained glass tales of St. Louis IX glass blue, as that summer day in every childhood, on a shore that is yet to end or is only ever sky. Like old bones drying half buried in the sand is the tint of the cathedral's columns. Erasmus, meaning beloved or to love, painted your hues of golden liquor and rouge, unexpected and inevitable in his touch, his show of mastery, that to reach that coins of maroon wax immolate themselves, their smoke, promises, and pleading mingled. Trickling back out, a passerby rails on Protestants, next to courtyard peddlers of palm readings, and art, dark and brash, slapped on fence posts, and two men with a mic and acrobatics pad, drumming up their own audience and offerings. History and hearsay spilled together like ooze, of French vampire brides, lover ghosts in a former brothel, the house meant for Napoleon exile, now offering alligator po' boys to classical music, with no requirement to pay respect at any of his frames or to claim him as distant father or by bastard or heir. The night's highway drives on the bayou through a funnel of pine tops, like a curtain of sleep, if sleep could watch itself, could follow voices back to Chelsea's, where the crowd stole the lyrics singing Hail Satan, like they were all castaway sons of their father, sent out for desiring to make from themselves everything beautiful. Okay, so I'm on my, this is the last one I have for today. This one is kind of set more in the present tense, set in Alabama. It dips into memory, but it's looking more hopefully towards the future. And the title, Panzanella, is a type of Italian salad. Panzanella. I remember snapdragons coming up like spears to my chest in my mother's garden, color of a honeybee's stripe, marmalade, and fireworks, their columns of wavy lips closed, softly inviting to suck my little finger, to kiss my nose and pluck. My mother gifted an armful of lilies to her grandmother and regretted it. She warned me to look, not touch. Today, I am falling into the art of panzanella. Bread ends, toast in the oven, cold tomato skins give way to my knife with a pull forward or back, a sign of dullness, my lover would say. I dissect the long and hefty cucumber beneath my hands, thinking of how he narrates with the senses times by hops and aroma, spends hours crafting a meal, disappeared in minutes. I tear fresh mozzarella apart and am left with a soft film of fat on my fingertips. With my left hand, I strain ice water from the red onions, shocked into a softer tang. I shred the basil and recall a dozen gardens that grew like children, tended or neglected. The refrigerator hums so loudly, I could not bear to live inside it any longer than I did. For years, my instinct was to create distance, to keep a knife between myself and the object, to pull on gloves before planting seeds to dry, to sprout. Today, I made myself the sweetness of summer, out of season, my delight, at the heart of the tomato and the flesh of the cucumber, fresh and fragrant. I would give half my years to live each moment like this, mouth and hands open, bare. Thank you.
Now I want to introduce Cole Alexander. Cole, would you please come up?
This moves. Oh my gosh, my heart is now. Alright, so I'll start with the official one. So Nathanael Williams is a third-year graduate student at GCSU, where he teaches English Comp 2 and Intro to Creative Writing. He's lived abroad in Ethiopia and South Africa and climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. He loves to write sci-fi and fantasy stories about people and their proxies and who they become after the end of the world as we know it. So yeah, I had the opportunity to hang out with Nathanael last night and all today, and he's a really cool guy, so also he's a graduated from here, alumni, that's the word. So, anyway.
Alrighty, let's see. Can you all hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay, so this is kind of like a dream come true in the sense like I remember this room distinctively. I have done many a CE credit in here. And now I'm back and I am the CE
You are.
It's kind of wild. Pretty good stuff. Yeah, I just, wow. Thanks for having me. So, I've got a fun piece here that I wrote about a year ago. I kind of got sick and tired of writing my thesis. If you see me yawn or my eye twitch, it's not because I'm bored. I have pulled a couple all-nighters, but I really shouldn't have because that thesis had to get done. But I got sick and tired of writing my thesis about a year ago, so I was like, let me write something fun. Take a bonzo idea, combine some of the stuff I love. And the end result is this little short piece, well, I say short, it could take us about here, let me set up a timer, but it is called Paw Hammer. And I will give you a tiny bit of context so you're not totally lost, but just roll with it. Basically, it is the very, very far future, and humans have maybe died out, but we've kind of said peace. where our souls are chilling out in crystalline structures called reliquaries, and those reliquaries are very much sought after. And that is all the context I will give. Buckle up. In the far future, in the cold, uncaring vastness of deep space, there are a surprising number of dogs. Not quite like the dogs of our era, mind you, though rest assured, they still retain their fluffiness between all the armor they wear and enjoy, if begrudgingly at first, a good belly rub. For one, these dogs are mostly bipedal, and you'll be pleased to know that their lifespans are many times longer than their quadruped ancestors. For another, they now grapple with the kind of existential questions that once kept their masters awake at night. What makes one a good boy or girl? Is good the same as right? The answer, they found in logic both loyally canine and tragically human, lies in quasi-religion, the dogma, they call it. An unwavering fealty to a race near extinct and scattered across the cosmos. In this regard, one might lament their loss of innocence, having greater worries than making those around them happy or keeping those around them safe. Fortunately, however, for the few of us humans that remain, our bodies forsaken and our minds sealed within reliquaries of diamantine, the canine astrocore has never forgotten nor lost faith in the bond between man and dog. Alphys Laika is one of those dogs, and we find her and her pack of canites, the void mongrels, embattled on the seditious moon of Tripto. Twin thunderpaw barrels spit righteous, rocket-propelled fury at her enemies, an aura of bond energy crackling along her vambraces and over her pauldrons like golden lightning, blinding those corrupted by the rupture as she crashes into their midst. Suffer not the bond traitor to live, she roars as her obsidianite gladius weeps, its blade black as the void, rendering putrid flesh and severing warped bone. Drive them back into the darkness from whence they spawned. Tripto's population had once been star sap miners, extracting the blood of the cosmos from the moon's ossified graveyards, but they dug too deep, and discovered to their peril that even in death, the children of the Nebugasts were just as ruinous as they were in life. A swarm of malformed runts, their tainted bodies twisted and hairless, clutching sharpened mining tools and brandishing primitive lead belchers, swarm about Laika and her 6-strong litter squad. The runts howl and whine in voices not their own, a fell, amber light swirling behind their clouded eyes and oozing from their weeping sores. Yet they die all the same. Born from the same artificial womb batch, a litter squad operates like a single organism, wheeling, cleaving, shooting, and shielding as if they can read their siblings' thoughts. Short barks of acknowledgement and terse commands crackle through the bark sets in their helmets, seconding decades of training and years of combat experience across countless worlds. Fear not the unholy fire, for we are called to this fetch, Laika cries. We will bring this blasted moon and its accursed fuel back under the Master's guiding leash. Starsat Minor remains the only way for spacefarers to bridge the chasms between said worlds in a single lifetime. Thus, a source lost merits the deployment of a packed fleet and the initiation of a fetch. The leftover power of 1,000 devoured suns is spent to tear a hole in the material plane, opening the way to ruptured space and, if one is not vigilant, damnation. Without the proper harmonic wards of the Purists and the discipline of the Abarcus Navigore, many a ship has entered the rupture, never to emerge, or worse, emerged years or even decades later, ship and crew alike warped and raving mad. The gas giant, Shipper 6, rises bloated and red in the west, casting Tripto into rusty, premature twilight as the remaining runts break into disarray, fleeing towards a large outcrop, the color of broken bone and riddled with irregular holes that seems to rupture from the petrified whirls of the planet's terrain like a desiccated sponge. Laika spares a brief thought for the legends of the moon she's been sent to reclaim, and she and her litter squad pursue. Seas turn to acid, an attempt by the masters to rid this world of the nebugas spawn laid within the moon's crust, leaving behind countless deep pits and tunnels that worm their way down into the flesh-colored rock. She cares not for the illusion of Tripto's million eyes, for the fetch comes before all else, and her orders are clear. Onwards, brothers and sisters, to whom does Tripto belong? To the pups of the bond, is the resounding reply. In response to the war cry, the outcrop's largest eyes glow a sickly green, the barrels of plasma casters poking from the gloom to vomit molten boluses at the oncoming Canites. Dozens of smaller eyes begin to blink, laser and kinetic small arms fire lashing out into the dusk, killing many of the retreating runs. Laika's Howspex highlights no less than 4 of the fearsome guns, and a faint buzz of apprehension filters through the bark's channels, tempered only by discipline. Where did the miners get artillery? No matter, push on. The litter squads break into small, loosely spaced groups, but there is no escaping the searing gobs of plasma as they burst, eating through ceramite armor, fur, and flesh. 2 Canites fall, along with dozens more of the enemy to their own fire, but the charge does not slow, their sacrifice must not be in vain. Do you sense it, siblings? Laika says, shield held high as they close the distance. There is something more sinister at work here, but do not waver in the face of adversity, root it out at its source. She leads her 4 remaining brothers and sisters under the plasma casters, the terrible guns unable to depress low enough, and they storm the nearest eye in the outcrop, dispatching the gun crew with midnight blades and precise bursts from thunderpaw gauntlets. Great coils of power cable spew from the back of the caster, snaking away into the bowels of the moon like intestines. One of the litter squad notes that the equipment has a gutted feel, for cannons like these are normally found aboard starships. The pieces begin to fall into place, as Laika agrees, and the squad. Stay vigilant, she says. The air is thick with rupture. Do not let it deceive you. Indeed, as they pass through caverns and shattered storage depots, strange shades begin to rise from pools of stagnant star sap. Odd drafts of rock that seem to move with purpose, disappearing and reappearing elsewhere, are a sure sign that the veil between planes is thin. Runts attempt to ambush the litter squad at every intersection, and one leaps at Laika within a hidden alcove, a limpet mine clutched to its mangy chest. She reacts on instinct, turning mid-stride and driving her gladius into the creature's sternum before kicking it back into the alcove and raising her shield. Brace, she barks, as the dying runt triggers the mine. Designed to crack armor with a jet of superheated copperite, the blast does little damage without a surface to shatter, but the sound is amplified tenfold by the close confines of the tunnel. Laika bites back a pained whine, her helmet's sonic dampers engaging a fraction of a second too late. As her litter squad's alpha, she must remain strong. Warmth blooms in her breast, though, as her siblings encircle her, clearing the rest of the ambush as she clears her head. The pack's strength lies in its members. As the ringing in her ears fades, a warning bark tinged with fear from one of her siblings cuts through the static and her hackles rise. They have company. The smell is unmistakable. Familiar, yet somehow wrong, and over it all is the cold, metallic reek of the rupture. Traitor pack, Laika growls, the grim picture becoming clear at last. There is nothing more abhorrent to the canine astrocorps than one who has turned their back on the bond. But the wound is deepest when the ones to fall are canites. Some were captured and remade by the necromechanical relicons, others tortured by the eldritch nebugasts while traversing ruptured space. but all had their wills broken, and in shame fled back into the rupture with their tails between their legs, becoming more and more corrupt till there is not left but a hateful shell of their former selves. For them, the complete eradication of the masters is not enough. All memory of their existence must be purged, starting with those who fight for their preservation. The miners hadn't just delved too deep, they brought something through. The tunnel ahead ends in a metal bulkhead, scarred with micrometeor impacts and discolored by the oily sheen of ozone. The way the outcrop above seemed to breach the surface, as if something had suddenly and violently displaced the rock below, like a long-lost starship, dropping out of ruptured space where the veil is naturally thin. Suddenly makes sense. From a large hatch in the bulkhead, 6 armored figures clank out into the tunnel in stained, corroded ceramite, feral grins with bleeding gums visible behind broken visors, the pack insignia on their pauldrons replaced by fell markings from another plane. Loyalists, curs, now hisses, drawing a long, pitted vampirine sword. Send their souls to join the false masters. May their flesh nourish our bones, cries another. And their blood nourish our blades, gurgles a third. Leica and her litter squad seal their helmets and raise their shields, sending short barks transmissions up to the Bargist, their frigate in orbit, and the other litter squads on the surface to alert them of their find. No words are to be wasted on traitors, Leica giving only a single condemning order to her siblings. Put them down. They open fire and charge, Thunderpaw rocket-propelled rounds tearing chunks from traitor armor when they find it and denting traitor shields when they don't. Then they're upon the fallen Canaanites. With a guttural snarl and a crackle of golden energy, Leica and her litter squad plow into the traitor ranks. Unlike runts, the fallen Canaanites are more than a match for their outnumbered Vaughn counterparts. Obsidianite and vampirine peel hauntingly as they clash, ringing out over the growls and roars as combatants strike and maneuver in the tunnel's confines. The traitors draw first blood. 3, including the Alpha, converging on Leica, and 1 managing to land a crushing hit on her left vambrace with a spiked mace as she counters the other's blades. The crunch of bone fracturing in ceramite mixes with a cry of pain and rage that rips its way out of her, but she is a Canite, and she does not waver, and the traitors will be repaid twofold. Clotting foam, tinged pink with blood, wells up through the cracks in her armor and hardens on contact with the air as she drives her blade into the foul, leering maw of one of her assailants, killing them on the spot. Unable to raise her damaged arm fully, she fires a single Thunderpaw round into the armored boot of the mace wielder, staggering them and leaving their rear exposed to a back-breaking strike from one of her siblings with a warhammer. The rest of her litter squad has already dispatched another, howling the traitor forces, but another of her Canaanites has fallen to a traitor's slug gun, blood and clotting foam spurting from 3 gaping holes in their breastplate as they sink to the ground beside their shattered shield, the life leaving their eyes and leaving the numbers equally matched. The traitor Alpha cackles wetly, grabbing the edge of Leica's shield and pulling her with him into a sticky, congealed pool of star sap and the thinning veil above it. A sudden chill washes over Leica as the air around them ripples, causing her fur to stand on end as reality tears, and with a sickening jolt, they tumble into the rupture. Her stomach heaves, her internal compass spinning as bile rises in her throat. Her housepex wails in her ears, corruption scrambling the sensors and threatening to overwhelm her visor with nonsense data. Then her boots hit a solid surface with a terrific squelch, and her training kicks in. Quashing the nausea and mounting dread, she takes stock of her surroundings. The surface beneath her writhes with toxic slime molds, the horizon slowly spinning with chunks of infested matter like the one she stands on, rising, setting, and mingling with the fragments of sundered spacecraft, both familiar and alien. They drift aimlessly against an eternal void of dark purple miasma. A sickly amber star winks languidly in and out from behind a sinuous strand of gas in the distance, riven here and there by webs of violet lightning that burn veined afterimages into her eyes. Phantom sounds from the material plane echo around her, the ring of blades and the bark of gunfire from her litter squad, fighting on just a dimension away. While the phantom shapes loom at the edge of her vision, toying with her mind, inviting a madness which she will not, must not, cannot allow to take hold. Something about the star unsettles her more than anything else, but in the moment she cannot place why. And then a sixth sense prompts her to spin, star momentarily forgotten, her neck hairs prickling as she raises her blade just in time to counter the traitor Alpha's overhead strike that would have split both helmet and skull in two. "Welcome home, sister," the trader Alpha says, licking his black, scabbed lips, pink spittle speckling like his visor as he leers down at her. Gal rises once more in her stomach, and she headbutts him in the muzzle with a satisfying crunch, sending him staggering back as she shouts, "Those who forsake their oaths are no sibling of mine." This forsaken place will never claim her, nor will she abandon the bond, not while she still draws breath. The pain arresters in her armor's Bedecay suite are kicking in, enough for her to bring her Thunderpaw gauntlet to bear, enough to send this traitor back to his false masters. Her house specs rally against the swirling corruption, a flickering golden crosshair on her visor locking between the traitor's eyes, small arcs of bond energy flickering along her limbs. Then the shadows shift again, and Micah's blood runs cold. The traitor Alpha wipes the gore from his ruined muzzle and points an ancient plasmacaster gauntlet at her chest, the weapon charging with glowing green energy. He does not sense the titanic, ethereal shape emerging from the miasma behind him, perhaps intoxicated by the scent of dread that oozes from Lyca's every pore, as talon-like fingers, each the size and length of a CAC Corvette, close in with dexterity that defies their size. There are no stars in ruptured space. Even pups know this. The Arcasinians think it may or may not have always been the case, but having consumed every star in their own realm, the eldritch nebugasts began conjuring rupture storms that allowed them to slip into the material plane to drink countless suns that sate a thirst that knows no end. Fell pictograms flicker and flash across Lyca's house specs as they fizzle and fail under a psionic rumble that threatens to liquefy her bones. Her jaw aches, teeth gritted to keep the whine of terror in her throat. Every fiber of her being screams to tuck tail and run, to hide, to avert her gaze. And though she can feel her discipline slipping, she looks up into the searing amber light, determined to die on her paws. She does not see the monstrous fingers pluck the traitor Alpha from their little slime-encrusted planetoid, but she is vaguely aware of his scream, a chilling, wretched sound, as a being colder than the void drains all warmth from his broken body in a fraction of a second, leaving nothing behind but a frozen husk. A fork of violet lightning cuts across ruptured space, briefly illuminating the nebulast's stooped skeletal figure behind its single piercing eye. Never has Lyca felt so insignificant, or so alone. And for a moment, she understands how the traitors could forsake the bond. And yet, even as all courage threatens to leave her, she sees it. Floating captive in the creature's other hand and held close to its withered chest, something glimmers. An obelisk of diamantine, and from it, like the tiniest bell, bright and clear amidst the storm of corruption and chaos, comes a faint, frightened voice. "Puppy?" All at once, she remembers who she is. She is Lyca. Her genes the same as the best and bravest girl, a hero of the first age of canine spaceflight who gave her life in a tiny, primitive capsule, blazing a path across the cosmos for the masters to follow. Her ancestors had helped forge the bond, and it would not break with her. So she holds the nebugast's gaze and gives it a piece of her mind, letting the wine in her throat tear forth into a series of booming barks that echo across the void, their meaning loud and clear. "Leave my human alone."
That's sick. Thanks, Nathanael. Finally, I would like to introduce Grace Lawrence. Grace, would you come?
Thank you, Michael. Good evening, everybody. Like Dr. Peters said, I am Grace Lawrence. I am a creative writing senior here at Berry. And I have the honor tonight of introducing the Dr. David James Poissant, who is the author of the story collection, The Heaven of Animals, in print in 5 different languages, a winner of the GLCA New Writers Award and a Florida Book Award longlisted for the Penn/Robert W. Bingham Prize and a finalist for the Los Angeles Times Book Prize. His stories and essays have appeared in the American Scholar, the Atlantic Monthly, the Chicago Tribune, the New York Times, One Story, Plowshares, the Southern Review, and in numerous anthologies. His novel, Lake Lives, Lake Lives was published in 2020 by Simon & Schuster, and like Dr. Peters also said, his books are outside in the lobby for sale, so please stop by and purchase one.
Yeah, sign up.
And he will sign them.
All right, can everyone hear me okay? Great. Yes, I will sign. I will also illustrate. If you have a favorite animal, let me know what it is and I will draw it. It won't always be good. There's a very questionable fish in Dr. Meek's book earlier. But I will do my best to attempt to draw something. Okay. I'm going to set a timer here. I'm going to read one, maybe two, but probably one story. So I'm going to start with one from, this is a story from my collection, Heaven of Animals. This story is called 100% Cotton. The night is cold, the buildings are tall. The sky, except where it's starlit, is black. Black like black checker pieces, or what's left of wood after fire. Also, I should mention there's a large gun pointed at my face. And because there's a large gun pointed at my face, things speed up the way they do in nature documentaries, how a seed sprouts, turns to stalk, and takes leaves in 10 seconds. Things here are speeding up just that way. Stars pinwheel beyond the buildings. The moon rises, sets, rises again. And then things slow way down. If you don't want to be caught dead in that shirt, the man says, you'd best take it off. The guy with the gun is not fucking around. I don't know anything about guns, but this is a big one. It looks like the kind that holds a lot of bullets. The kind that leaves your corpse unrecognizable when the cops come, which is okay, because there's no one to miss me. No one left on this spinning planet to faint when the coroner lifts the sheet from my bullet-riddled face. The gun is pointed at me because the guy asked for my wallet, and I said no. No, I said. And he said, how would you like to die? And I said, well, I wouldn't want to be caught dead in this shirt. Which isn't exactly true. If I hadn't wanted to be caught dead in this shirt, I would not have worn it. It seemed fitting for the occasion. The shirt is black with a skull and crossbones emblem on the pocket, what you see printed on labels, on the kind with caps to keep out babies. Maybe the skull and crossbones wasn't an inspired choice, but fuck you. You can pick out your own death shirt. The guy with the gun didn't like my tone. He said, I don't like your tone. He didn't get my smugness, that it was on purpose, so I said it again, the thing about not wanting to be caught dead in the shirt, which is when he told me to take it off, which pretty much brings you up to speed. I pull the shirt over my head. I kneel and fold the shirt on the sidewalk, a rectangle, department store perfect. Work 5 years at the Gap, and you get really, really good at folding clothes. You have never been held up, the gunman says. I could tell him the truth, that it's my third time this week, that for months I've watched the local news fear segments in order to pinpoint the Atlanta intersection most likely to get me offed, that I picked this street in this neighborhood and wander it nightly, that I've been roughed up, cursed, and mugged. I've lost 2 wallets, a watch, my phone, but not one guy would pull the trigger. Because it turns out that what they wanted wasn't blood, just money. Non-compliance, I decided, was my best option. Last night, I sang and even did a little dance. I belted, gyrated my hips, and that only freaked the guy out. That one didn't even stick around for the cash. This guy, though. This guy looks like he wouldn't mind firing a round through your forehead if only you found the right words to provoke him. Wallet, he says. Now. I'm on my knees, the shirt the only thing between me and his feet. We're in the dark where he grabbed me, but there's enough moonlight to light up the skull, which isn't the same material as the rest of the shirt, but something firm and rubbery, like a kid's iron-on jersey decal. I point at the shirt. 100% cotton, I sign. English is my first language. My second language is American Sign Language. The guy looks around. He's getting antsy. This is how my father died. My father was born deaf, and he taught me his language, though it wasn't his language, not for years. In this country's history, there was a time when sign language wasn't allowed, when the deaf were taught to speak in tongues, to mouth sounds they couldn't hear leave their lips, as though all of America was afraid of hands, of what the deaf might do with a language of their own. My father found happiness with a deaf woman who taught him to speak with his body. She stuck around just long enough to give him a son, me. He never remarried. He died last year when a man asked for his wallet. Dad kept walking, and the man shot him. Couldn't your father read lips? People ask, as though the answer to this question determines whose fault it is he's dead. A wind kicks up. My skin prickles. The sidewalk hurts my knees. I'll give you to the count of 5, the guy says. 5. At the Gap, I read tags until I came to know a material at the touch of a sleeve. Even cotton polyester blends, I can guess, give or take 10% on the ratio. My t-shirt between us looks lonely, and I wonder if my father fell like that, whether he folded or crumpled like a dropped shirt. Machine wash warm with like colors, I sign. 4, the guy says. I don't know whether my father misunderstood his killer, whether he saw the gun, whether he walked on knowing what came next. Gentle cycle, I sign. Keep it up, he says. His thumb jumps and something clicks at his end of the gun. He steps toward me, and he's almost on a shirt. His boots are black lace-ups. It won't be long now. 3, you want to know why I want to die. But what answer could I give good enough for you? You who want to live. Putting a thing like that into words, it's like trying to explain what stands between people, what keeps us from communicating. I mean, really communicating with each other. We move through the days with our hands at our sides, and I believe that whatever holds us back, whatever keeps us at bay, maybe it's the same thing that left my mother tethered at the neck by an orange extension cord to our attic's rafters. Maybe it's what sings in my ear to follow her. She wasn't afraid to do to herself what I'm asking someone to do for me. Tumble dry low, I sign. If I fall forward, my head will catch the shirt like a pillow. I'm ready. 2, we talk in our sleep, and so do the deaf. Nights I snuck into my father's room, his hands worked over his chest, signing. It was the language of dreams, incomprehensible, but it was gorgeous. His hands rose and fell like birds with his breathing. 1, except sometimes. Sometimes meaning crept in, a transmission. My father, who spent his life missing my mother, that one sign, index fingers beckoning, then hands pulling air in the direction of the heart. I close my eyes and it's there, the gun muzzle, ice between my eyes, and I want to cry out, and I hold my breath. I wait. I wait. You want to know what my father was saying, and I'll tell you. It's what I shout once the gunman's given up, returned his weapon to his jacket pocket. It's what I call after his heels slapping the sidewalk away from me. It's my voice to the gunman and my father's hands to my mother in the night, calling, "Come back, come back, come back." Thank you. Okay, here's a short one as well. If you choose to see this as a metaphor in any way for current events, I won't dissuade you, but actually, this is new. A little biblical nod in the title. The title of this story is "For We Are Many." The mob carries pitchforks. They carry shovels and torches. So many torches. What will the mob do with all these torches? We do not know. One man seems to hold aloft 3 torches, but when we squint, we see that what he holds is in fact a candelabra, which is either a relief or somehow far more disconcerting. We can't fathom the mob's plans for this fire, these gardening utensils, all this makeshift weaponry, but especially the fire. We're oceanside, after all, no driftwood in sight, no kindling for funeral pyres, no stakes at which to burn a scream-spent corpse. Not much wood at hand is what we're getting at. The mob drools. Its eyes are bloodshot, wild, wide, and ready to witness the heinous acts the mob is ready to commit. Why this mob? Why has this mob come to our shore, our quiet seaside town? We do not know. The mob is not zombies. Neither have we reached the world's end. We've merely reached the conclusion of a lazy afternoon, rain on the horizon, 30% chance growing to 50% overnight. Except that with the arrival of the mob, the laziness has been sapped from the day. The sun is set. We stood in the surf to watch the sun go down, then turned to find the mob trampling the dunes between the ocean and our town. There are wild sea oats in those dunes, one of us points out, endangered, protected by state law. The mob is undeterred. The candelabraed man picks an oat from the sand and clamps the long stem between his teeth. The mob is growing restless. They holler, stamp, their motivation is unclear. We're hungry, the mob offers at last, and the mob parts to let a few of us through. The few of us let through make sandwiches, ham and Swiss, grilled cheese for the vegetarians, for the vegans, PB&J, for those with nut allergies, J. Plus, of course, an assortment of gluten-free options. The mob demands its crusts cut off, so we return to our house and remove the crusts. Sandwiches uncrusted, we return to the beach. We are a peaceful people. We leave our knives at home. We don't expect the mob to offer thanks, for what is a mob if not a mass incapable of thanks? A gathering that cannot be made happy, a hydra that will not disentangle until each head sees the thing it's done, and seeing becomes again a head, capable of thought, a feeling, an ache at the back of its throat at the sight of what it's just dismembered, disemboweled. A sight that reminds the head of its own fragile humanity and the impossibility of escaping said humanity, except by way of death or mob. And no mob lasts for long. This realization is ours, not the mob's. The mob has yet to disentangle. Perhaps they will disentangle before the need sets in to disembowel. We who stand on the beach sure hope so, though in truth, few of us believe we'll wake tomorrow in our beds. The mob dispatches its sandwiches. It does not ask for more. It does not offer thanks. The mob is not uniformed or color coordinated, which makes it even more mob-like in appearance. One man appears to have joined the mob fresh from baking, apron loose and flour dusted at the waist. A McDonald's employee, burgundy-clad, hunches over the sand, her visor backward, examining a shell that's washed ashore. A man in full zookeeper getup picks at his teeth with a reedy pitchfork tine. This seems risky, but at least he's leaving the sea oats alone. The zookeeper, satiated, sandwich-fed, teeth cleaned, clears rather dramatically, we feel, his loud zookeeper throat. The baker tightens his apron. The McDonald's employee, whom we hoped was maybe just an admirer of shells, drops the shell she's been admiring and from her pocket produces a revolver, which, the way she holds it, seems a gun this woman's used before. We're not sure we care for this turn of events, this weaponry's evolution from makeshift to made to kill. A murmur arises. We could run, but where? The mob is circling, closing in. We could swim, but this is dusk, the sharking hour, and we do not want to die by being food. We could ready ourselves to fight back, but then would we not become a mob ourselves? Perhaps we are a mob already, though this thought raises a question. When does a mob become a mob? When does the Hydra gather all those heads? Is it the moments weapons are gathered? Sooner? At the riling? Once bloodlust has set in, or once bloodshed has begun? Or is self-defense not mob-like, but heroic? Or if not heroic, necessary? Or if unnecessary, at least excusable? We do not know. We only know we stand at the water's edge waiting, torches and pitchforks closing in. We wait, and somewhere in our waiting, a child cries. The cry is short, stifled. Impossible to tell whether the cry has come from us or from the mob. Yes, even children join the mob, which grows, is growing, closing in. The cry silences us, silences the mob, the surf, the break of waves, silences the sky, a heavy, all-encompassing silence that mutes the moon, furs the horizon's razor edge. The cry, we think, will be the thing that saves us. For weren't we children once? All of us, children in our mother's arms? Weren't we young? And what is childhood if not proximity to innocence and love? The cry seems a promise. The world will miss you when you're gone. A promise we believe, a promise that might move the mob to reconsider the revolver, the candelabra in its hand. The cry does not move the mob to reconsider the revolver, the candelabra in its hand. The cry is all the provocation the mob needs. There will be no more stalling, no more sandwiches or shells examined on the beach. As one, the mob charges, screaming, trampling the sea oats, wrecking the dunes on its way to the water's edge. What drives the mob forward? Some say ignorance, some pride. Mob coming at us, eyes grown wider and they're widening, torchlights brighter and they're brightening. We say what drives them forward is the warmth of other bodies, side by side. Easier to do as those beside you do. Easier to raise your weapon than to ask what weapons risen really mean. Easier when every question circles back, when questions might be used to question you. Easier to join the side inclined to win. And while a wise man once said, love slays fear, it's also true that fear can fuck love up, can bottle love and fling it out to sea. The mob descends, and now gas cans emerge, now rope, more torches lit. The mob does not tarry. And though they may wish to postpone what they will feel at seeing what they've done, they do not wish to prolong what comes next any more than we wish for it to be prolonged. Soon we will light up the night with our writhing. Soon we will shatter the silence of the sky. And for a moment the mob will feel better, but only for a moment. Then as each member of the mob becomes an each member will feel much, 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 much worse. And now the hands are on us. Now gas is poured. Last words, the mob asks. A torch waits to be lowered. A match waits to be lit. And because there is nothing, really, to be said, nothing to prevent what happens next, no way to prod the consciences of those who will soon see and weep, untangle and disperse, forever's rent by what they've done, though not before what will be done is done. We say nothing. We don't cry out, don't sing, don't ask the mob for one last cigarette. Neither do we look away. No, in those, our final moments, we do what we were put on earth to do. We live. Thank you.
All right, what questions have you for us?
So talking to y'all today at the little lunch we had, but all three of you have very different stories of how you ended up where you are today and how you ended up in the field of creative writing. But when did y'all fall in love with creative writing? When was that moment spark thing for you where it's this is it, this is it?
Huh. That's a difficult question because oftentimes, sometimes there'll be a big aha moment, but usually it's little things. I don't know where they are, and maybe I'm glad they're lost. I had these journals when I was little, before we moved abroad, probably around 8 or 9. Anyone remember those school composition notebooks with the black and white cow pattern on them? Yeah. I had 3 of those, and I filled them with drawings and designs, usually stuff I copied from history books I found, pictures of planes or tanks, as a boy, or if I wanted to nature. I loved those DK big picture books,
Yeah.
and I would copy down designs and pictures, and then I started writing stories about them. I didn't want to be a writer per se, I wanted to be a pilot, but around 11th grade, don't have that great vision, don't have great focus, and also I'm not very good at math. So it was pretty much a non-starter. And then family health history, I couldn't pass the health exam. And then the final nail in the coffin, I was doing flight training in South Africa, and we were flying out over a game reserve, and we were banking low through some storm clouds. There was a whole herd of zebras beneath, and I was like, whoa, look at that! And my instructor was like, eyes forward. Which you don't want your pilot to be looking at the ground when you're flying. So I thought maybe I'd be better at telling stories about the romanticism of aviation and adventure than I would be actually piloting the plane. So the realization came around 12th grade, but I've been telling stories for a very long time. So
Yeah, I think for me it was a little later. I always enjoyed reading and writing. I enjoyed writing stories and stuff. It wasn't until my senior year, though, I think when I was in Dr. Week's advanced poetry class, that I kind of fell in love with poetry to know to the extent that I was oh, this is what I need to be doing with my life. In a weird way, it's writing and poetry just makes sense to me in a way nothing else really does. And it's just an avenue for understanding myself in the world that I had never really found before. And so that's at that point I was okay, this is what I need to do for myself. So yeah, it's been great. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was definitely not always a reader. My mom was a librarian, so it drove her crazy. She would bring books home and I wouldn't read them. And she tricked me. She brought home comic books because I didn't think that was reading. And of course, we all know graphic narrative, comics, all incredible sources of reading. And once I got into the comics for the art, I started reading them. And then in 11th grade, the thing that flipped the switch for me was, as cliche as it sounds, was The Great Gatsby by Scott Fitzgerald. The characters were just so complicated. They were all deeply complicated bad people. And I was fascinated. I was oh, there's no good guy and bad guy. There's no superhero, supervillain. And they were all tragic, and I loved that. I was messy real life. And that's when I got more interested in literary realism. And I still love comics too. I love both.
Yeah. I think it's you. Oh, great. Did you have some? Oh, sorry. Okay. Great. Yeah.
Nathanael, what was it like living abroad? You said you lived abroad for some time, so what was that like?
It was an experience. So my dad worked for the CDC, and around the time I was 11 years old, he came home one day and said, "How would you like to live in Ethiopia?" I went, "Where is that?" And I had a little plush globe about the size of my head, and it was with all the nations on it. And so he points to it, a tiny little frumpy country on the sheet of the map. It's just like, oh, okay, that's kind of far, isn't it? And he's like, yeah, it'll be an adventure. So off we went. I often got mistaken for an Ethiopian local, and so someone would speak to me in Amharic, like rattle off a sentence, and I'd be like, sorry. It was a lot of fun. I made a lot of friends from the international community. So I graduated high school in South Africa. We spent 2 years in Ethiopia, 6 years in South Africa, and so one of my friends, he's half white, half Mexican, and his dad worked for Ford at their Ford plant in South Africa. And the other friend is half German, he's German by birth, but he's Indian ethnicity. And so we're from all over the place. You meet all kinds of folks, both local and from the international expat community, and it kind of whenever stuff happened back stateside, everyone would kind of like gather in the library, and we'd kind of like talk politics from like a colorblind point of view, just like, oh wow, your home country's on fire. Like, oh, wow. I hope you guys are still here, or you get a place to go home to. You're like, ha ha. But I mean, it was a great experience, and I'm glad I got to do it, because I came back stateside and I was like, wow, I appreciate being an American and living here, but I also appreciate that there's a big old world out there with lots of people doing lots of things with their own histories and stories. And,
I have to ask the question, what would you tell yourselves when you were still at Berry?
just in general.
Yeah.
What year?
Before graduation.
Like right before graduation?
Sure.
It'll get better.
Okay, what about when you were a freshman? How about when you were a freshman?
It'll get better.
Yeah, I think I would, and this is only me speaking to myself, I would tell myself to relax. I'm an anxious person, and I love my time at Berry, and I love being back. And there's also this, even when you're in a place you love, your mind can go a million miles an hour, and you can keep thinking about the future and worrying about, am I doing the thing now that will put myself in the best position for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing.
Yeah.
And I'm trying as I get older to try to enjoy the thing I'm in now. Even though you can still be ambitious for the next thing, but also trying to be present and keep appreciating where you are in the moment.
Kind of the same vein. Just stop thinking so hard about it. And I took one semester of 18 credit hours. That hurt so much.
Yeah.
It actually took place in Evans. I don't remember which room it was. It was probably room 206 or 207. It was empty at the time. I was burned out. I went in the room, it was empty, and I just started crying. I called my dad, and I went, Dad, I'm a failure. I can't do this anymore. And he's just like, my son, this too shall pass. And I was just like, and he was right. And like, it will get better. You keep going. You take your classes, and Berry's a wonderful place. We've got amazing professors. You also have if anyone loves the outdoors, you just start walking, and you can get lost. We also lost plenty of stuff out there. Did anyone ever find that helicopter door and claim your reward?
What?
So,
The crash?
no, not the crash. No, apparently a U.S. helicopter, like a Chinook, was doing exercise out there, and the back door fell off the aircraft. And as y'all know, military equipment is expensive, so they was either own up to the embarrassment that they lost it and that was it, and I don't know how many thousands of dollars that door cost, or just have someone find it. But this campus is massive.
Yeah.
So if they offered a reward, you get to ride in a military helicopter, and it's our door, and no one's found the door. The outdoor club, we went looking for it 2 or 3 times. No sauce, but yeah, it's a fun community with amazing places to go and amazing stories. Stop, take a breath, hike up to Martha Berry's house.
That's actually a good follow-up question. What was y'all's favorite thing about Barry, looking back? Besides the creative writing program, of course.
Yeah, definitely the campus, House of Dreams, all the trails,
Yeah.
Victory Lake, the track. A lot of good memories, all of it, yeah.
I'll say this, and I'm not just saying this because they're here, but it's true. My favorite thing was the faculty. The professors I had at Berry made me want to be a professor. I can remember going to Dr. Bucher's office hours multiple times. She was my advisor, and I was so young and naive, and I would just go in and be like, what's the difference between romantic literature and Renaissance literature? And she never made me feel stupid. She would just like explain it to me for the 3rd time. And you know, I remember being in Dr. Watkins' American Lit class when I had my roommate who had a suicide attempt and I had to drive him in the night to Charter Peachford, and I just, you know, emailed him and said, like, I don't think I can come to class tomorrow. He was like, it's fine. Like, please, just take the time you need for your mental health. Professors like that aren't at every university in the country, and they were special here, and it made me want to try to be that kind of a caring professor.
These two have already said all the good stuff, so I'll do the cheesy one. The bikes. The ability to bike to my classes, or walk if I so wish. I mean, you can walk or bike anywhere. You might die to an 18-wheeler. Where I'm doing my master's program right now, Georgia Collegiate State University is real nice, but my apartment complex is right on the highway. If I want to walk to class, I gotta dodge 18-wheelers, and that's not a fun one. Same thing with biking. Now here, you can bike to any point on campus. You can bike up to the lake. If you're really feeling gutsy, you can bike to Martha's Berry. Fun story. I saw a mountain biking unicycle in my senior year. I was biking up a trail with a friend of mine. We dismounted to actually push our bike because it's a steep grade. And this dude comes by, and I was like, it's a weird looking bike. It was a mountain bike unicycle. And Rose just going. He's like, hey y'all. Never saw him again. I'm convinced he's like a berry spirit or something. No, the bikes, being able to get around easily and accessible without having to get in a car and go.
Kind of following that same train of thought, if y'all have one, what is your favorite story about the department faculty? If you have one.
See,
We can leave.
Or maybe class experience, like a specific class experience that has really stuck out to you.
One was just kind of funny. In addition to being an English major, I was an education minor, and I was in an education class, and I don't remember, it was with Dr. Carpenter, I believe he's retired. I don't remember what he was saying, but he was making some very important point. And he said it loudly, and he snapped his fingers, and the second he snapped his fingers, the power went out across the campus. It was completely unrelated. It was like, there was like a thunderstorm.
Really made
And he even shocked himself. We all just laughed about it. Like he couldn't regain the class. It was just, and he said it was nothing like that had ever happened in all his years of teaching. It was wild.
Yeah, that's hard follow-up.
I'm sure something crazy happened. It'll come to me after this. I'm like, darn it. But no, I don't know. Faculty's always been a blast. They've been really fun. I remember the popcorn machine. The first time Dr. Peters got the popcorn machine, I was like, what is this? Why do we have a popcorn? Do you need to ask why we have a popcorn machine? We have a popcorn machine. And it went from there. There have been, I'm sure it'll come to me at some point, and I'll be like, man,
Just like Onyx, R.I.P.
Oh.
Yeah. The ice cream story is pretty good.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, it's the ice cream story when I had ice cream because the bank was closed. We're supposed to
You're trying to get,
contracts.
like the entire class was trying to get our fingerprints.
So we had ice cream.
And we were told to go somewhere at a certain time, and we were there, and the place was closed. And it was raining, and we were rained on, and then we got ice cream instead.
It's a good story. Good job.
Last question?
Do we have time for a three-way Beyonce?
I think we do.
Oh, no.
I think we do.
All right. JP, you might not know what this is, but for the last few years, we've been asking all of the visiting writers.
7 years.
I never thought
Yeah, for the last 7 years, we've just been asking all the visiting writers thoughts and opinions on Beyonce. The division is turned on you, gang.
How's it feel?
Do you feel it now, Mr. Crane? Any opinions on it?
I should have thought of the answer to this by now.
Same, yes.
I was here when this was happening.
Someone go first.
I don't have much of an opinion either way. I know boring, lame, but I think we're in an era of a lot of confusion around and concern around, is this art okay? Is what someone produces or says okay? And Beyonce's very famous, and there's been some very famous people in the past couple of years who have said and done some questionable things that make you go, oh boy. And then, of course, do you still appreciate their art? Do you still appreciate what they do and what they say and what they sing? And so I think we should be careful about idols. Absolutely enjoy their music. I'll be honest, I'm sure I've heard plenty of Beyonce songs. Couldn't tell you any of them off the top of my head. I am the nerdiest nerd that has ever nerded. But it is what it is. I think Beyonce's pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, no, less nuanced answer. Yeah, Beyonce's a lot of fun. I love her music. I don't listen to a lot of pop music normally, but like I turn on her album sometime when I go to the gym. So yeah, go Beyonce.
I don't know her music well. I remember her as Foxy Cleopatra from Austin.
Yeah!
And she was excellent. I also know, like, Jay-Z cheated on her, which is insane.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
what is that? Crazy.
There you go.
All right, guys. Thank you.